What's up, world? Serge here. I'm a developer experience engineer from Sentry, and in this video, we're going to be talking about source maps, what they are, and how to instrument them inside Sentry with your Next.js application. The React and TypeScript code that you or your agents write gets compiled into JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, minified, and split into chunks so that your end user gets the most optimal and performant experience while loading your application. So your code goes from looking something like this into something like this. This is where source maps come in. Every single one of these chunks will have a debug ID and a source mapping URL associated with it so that when looking at stack traces, you see something familiar, the code that you actually written. This debug ID will then match the debug ID in a source map, and once the browser or Sentry has that, it'll be able to point to the right stack trace for the things that are happening in the code. When we run the application in development and we throw this sample error, you'll see that the browser actually has the context of the file where that error happened. But if you're running Sentry in development and you take a look at this error in Sentry, you'll see something a little bit different. You'll see a stack trace that has all of these chunks. This definitely makes it a lot harder to debug what was going on. The other problem is because these chunks get generated at random, you'll have the same error show up in Sentry multiple times over and over again because Sentry thinks it's a brand new error. If you're using Sentry to debug locally, I would recommend checking out Spotlight.js. It's pretty much like Sentry, but for your local development environment, and you don't have to send any data to Sentry, which helps make sure that you have enough quota in production to help debug issues that real users are facing and not just you. When you run Next.dev, it generates those chunks and source maps locally, but they don't actually end up in Sentry. To do that, we'll simulate a production build by building the application first and then using Next start instead of Next.dev as if it's a production application. npm run build. And as you can see, it goes through the steps of creating an optimized production build. And this run after production compile hook is actually where Sentry takes all of those chunks and the source maps and uploads them to Sentry. We also delete those source maps after upload to make sure that they don't end up in production, and so your users can see the source code that you wrote. Now, if we run npm run start, and we go back to the same application, and we throw that sample error, you'll see the opposite in browser. Because we're now running in production, the browser doesn't have the context of those source maps, and so when you look at it, you see this long minified file, and that's good. And if we head over to Sentry, and we refresh the page, now we can see this new error, and the stack trace here actually points to the right files, where we can see the code that we actually wrote. A couple of things to note. Source maps inside Sentry live under your project settings. To get to those, head back to the issues, go to the project selector, and hit the project settings. From there, you'll see in the sidebar, there is a source maps page, and this is where we see all of the source maps that get uploaded to Sentry. The way that Next.js bundles things, there's a client bundle, a server bundle, and an edge bundle. So you might see multiple instances of source maps, and that's okay. If your source maps aren't working as expected, delete all of them from here, rerun the build, and double check that everything is working. If you are running the build, but you're not seeing source maps in Sentry, double check your configuration. Inside next.config.cs, make sure that your organization is set and the right project is set. And we're also using auth token to be able to upload those source maps to Sentry. So make sure that it's set here, or you have the environment variable Sentry auth token set somewhere in your environment. This option is not required as long as you have this environment variable set in Vercel or anywhere else that you're building the application. With Next.js and TurboPack, source maps should work out of the box. If you are using Webpack and you're seeing some issues with source maps, go through the same troubleshooting steps. And if you're still running into issues, head over to our docs at docs.sentry.io, go to Next.js, go to source maps, and there is a troubleshooting source maps page that you can take a look at. If you have any more questions, let us know. Thanks. Bye.